Now we will move from road to sky because our next guest is Soňa Hykysová from Prague Airport. Her presentation is focused on decarbonization in the aviation sector. So, Soňa, stage is yours.
Good morning, everybody. As it was mentioned, my name is Soňa Hykysová, and I'm in charge of environment, sustainability, and ESG at Prague Airport. However, my presentation is not focused on what we are doing at the airport, but due to the topic of this webinar, I'm focusing on the aviation sector and its path to sustainability. I will try to outline concrete sets of measures to decarbonize aviation within a limited time frame. I will focus primarily on the Destination 2050 report, which very clearly summarizes and quantifies the specific possible emission savings. I will talk in short about technological improvements, SAF, economic measures, and operational improvements. Aviation has been labeled by the media and public as one of the biggest producer of CO2 emissions. However, the reality is that it contributes only 2 to 3% of CO2 emissions globally. The largest source is the energy sector and road transport. Aviation accounts for 12% of total transport emissions, and in the past, average fuel consumption has decreased by 2% per year. And another interesting fact is that 80% of CO2 emissions are generated from flights over a distance of more than 1,500 kilometers, for which there is no alternative. Flying connects world and remote destinations and contributing to GDP. With regard to Green Deal, there are attempts, for example, in France, on the restrictions of short-haul flights, but there is another alternative. A recent study compares all the advantages and disadvantages of short-haul flights with other transport alternatives. Conclusion: everything is not black and white. As a result, the construction of railway infrastructure alone is a much greater environmental burden than the construction of airport infrastructure, for example. Equally important is the noise pollution, where the number of inhabitants affected by noise from rail and car traffic or road transport is about 100,000 times higher than the one affected by noise from air traffic. However, I will take only about the decarbonization of the aviation sector. Emission reduction commitments are in line with the objectives of Paris Agreement. Of course, the goal is also to preserve connectivity for future generations. Specific aircraft manufacturers, airlines, and airports have their individual goals, of course. However, the whole industry is trying to unify these activities and communicate them together externally. The main initiatives in this direction include Destination 2050, signed by 5 main stakeholder groups in aviation sector. And I will focus on the conclusions of the study published by this initiative. Another initiative focused only on airports is Net Zero, for example, and another one only on airlines. And last but not least, there is also Toulouse Declaration, which has a broader scope and is focused on a wider range of stakeholders. In general, the initiatives have one thing in common: achieving net carbon neutrality by 2050. At the latest, and outlining concrete action plans to meet these goals. Potential of the individual sets of measures can be clearly seen in this image, whether it is technological and operational measures, the use of sustainable aviation fuels, economic measures, the impact of all these measures on demand is also taken into account. Nevertheless, a further gradual increase in demand for air transport, which has suffered a huge decrease during COVID, is expected. So the first group of measures that has the greatest potential for achieving emission savings is logically technological innovation. It is up to 37%. Some changes are feasible in the medium term, especially the acceleration of fleet renewal for more modern machines with lower fuel consumption and overall better parameters. New aircraft propulsion may look like science fiction for some, but electric planes, for example, are already flying and are planned for short-haul flights for domestic transport, for example, in Scandinavia. Hydrogen-powered aircrafts are already in the plans of aircraft manufacturers like Boeing or Airbus. Of course, technological changes will also require big changes in certification procedures. A measure that can bring its result practically now and without the need for significant changes both in the aircraft themselves and in the necessary logistic infrastructure is the use of sustainable aviation fuels. These can be mixed with conventional kerosene, which is a big advantage. And of course, the first generation biofuels used in road transport will no longer be supported. For aviation fuels, it will be necessary to apply very strict and robust sustainability criteria in order to eliminate other indirect impacts on the environment. By 2030, it is projected that there could be savings of 55% compared to 1990, and by 2050, sustainable aviation fuels could replace over 80% of kerosene consumption. The biggest issue in this area is production capacity and, of course, price. It is also necessary to increase the possibility of mixing SAF into kerosene from the current maximum possible amount according to ASTM certification up to 100%, and to implement the necessary policy regarding the mixing of SAF. It is now on the table in the form of Refuel EU aviation legislation, but for now in a very reduced form in percentage units. In addition to technical measures, economic measures also play a role in decarbonization, not only for air transport, of course. Aviation is included in the EU ETS system as opposed to car transport. In addition to this framework, there is also the CORSIA system, which is based on the offsetting of emissions from the international flights between participating countries. This is the amount of emissions above the 2019 reference value. When we talk about net carbon neutrality by 2050, we are also talking about technologies that will ensure the absorption of CO2 directly from the atmosphere or afforestation. These technologies, such as carbon capture storage, are currently in pilot operation. And in the case of these economic instruments, it is necessary for them to apply globally and, of course, to avoid carbon leakage, which is a big issue. Operational improvements, both in the air and on the ground, can also contribute to reducing emissions. The greatest potential lies in the change in air traffic management, the CSAR project. There is also talk of different flight arrangement, shorter distances between aircraft with the aim of saving emissions. For example, a separate chapter is the operation on airports with main focus on e-mobility and electric infrastructure for aircrafts to all gates and also for remote gates. Also, although airports have a minimal share of CO2 emissions from air transport, they have always been leaders in this area, as well as in innovation, digitization, etc. Prague Airport is no exception. Our goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. Since 2009, we have been measuring the carbon footprint of all three scopes and are involved in the International Airport Carbon Accreditation Program. We have implemented a number of cost savings measures since 2019. We have been using green electricity, and as one of few airports, we provide additional noise control measures, a ventilation program for surrounding communities. We also try to motivate airlines to use quieter aircrafts to and from Prague Airport by implementation of noise charges. To sum up, the aviation sector and the Destination 2050 initiative in particular has identified very clearly and measurably concrete steps that will lead to the full decarbonization of aviation, starting with technological innovation, the use of sustainable aviation fuels, operational and economic measures. And in short, there will be no reason to be ashamed of flying. On the contrary, I believe that the development of new technologies in aviation will find its application in other areas as well. Thank you very much.
Soňa, thank you as well for your presentation. It seems that the airports are almost an ideal field for the use of electric vehicles. What are you doing at Prague Airport in the field of decarbonization?
Thank you for this question. I can mention what we are doing, what we have done this year. This year, for example, we installed first photovoltaics on the roof of Terminal 3 and also purchased 15 electric vehicles. And we will focus also on other places at the airport for the installation of renewable energy or photovoltaics or geothermal power and so on. So we not depend also on green electricity. However, we try to find measures at operation and do investments in this area.
Mm-hmm. The presentation showed that the airports alone can contribute around 6% to reducing CO2 emissions. What measures are you taking to reduce CO2 emissions?
Yes, as I mentioned, for example, generation of electricity from photovoltaics, and starting 2019, we purchased green electricity. So the operation of electric vehicles can be green, totally green. Okay. And we replace lights for efficient lights. We replace other technologies with high consumption of energy.
Mm-hmm. And the last question will be on aviation noise. This is certainly another issue that needs to be addressed. What are you doing about the noise of aviation transport?
Yes, it's right. The noise issue is becoming very important in the vicinity of the airport, of every airport. We approach according to so-called balance approach to noise, to aircraft noise, and is based on 4 pillars. It is a reduction of noise at source. It is land use planning and management, and noise abatement operational procedures, and operating restrictions. So in practical point of view, this is the replacement of windows in the vicinity of the airport, or we provide also ventilation system with recuperation for inhabitants and for schools, for example.
Okay. So Soňa, thank you for answers and for your presentation.